I think for me, like one thing that recently happened is so you have like a different view from one of your investors. So do you regret raising from that investor? Do you get raising how much you raised? Was there something you could have done differently?
Well, I mean, very specifically, Notel is in someone else's control today because of that bad decision by me. We let these guys into the company, this brokerage, Newmark. They invested some money in maybe like the Series B or something. CEO of the company, they just went public. Actually, it's a pretty big brokerage, but they're only recently a public company. It's like a $2 billion company. The guy comes to see us. Amazing guy, really nice, smart, great reputation. He's a broker, which, I always kind of wonder about real estate brokers. But he's like, you guys are the right thing. I want to put myself behind you guys. We're a strong company. We'll help you. Okay, that sounds great. I mean, what a validation point. A huge industry player wants to get involved. Well, a few years later, they're like, oh, one of our sister companies is an investment bank. We actually have a common ownership structure, and you should meet Cantor Fitzgerald. I'm like, okay. I mean, I guess I've heard about them, and they're like, no, we should let us be your bank. We'll do the work for you. We'll do the financings, and we'll do all this stuff. We're like, all right, great. I mean, family relationship, I guess we should use it. Some of the people there were okay. Yeah, they didn't do amazing stuff. Honestly, I wasn't thrilled. And it was one of my regrets to do this kind of nepotistic thing. And it's 2020, it's the summer, and then there's like the next wave, and then it's December. And then, now remember, Newmark is an investor in our company, and our bankers are Cantor. And on December 30th, I get a phone call from our lender, our venture lender, which is some bank called Triple Point Capital. And there's another one called Bridge Bank. December 30th, I get a call from the lenders, and they're like, hey, you know how you were going to refinance the debt? You're going to have to deal with someone different because we sold the debt to somebody else. They'll give you a call.
God.
It's December 30th. So like New Year's is the Saturday. So this is like a Thursday night. And we're like, what? We were going to buy your debt. We were going to like refinance this thing. And they're like, we weren't feeling it. We went this other direction. So then the next phone call I get is from this guy who is the chairman of Newmark and the managing partner of Cantor Fitzgerald. There's one guy up here. And he's like, hey, I bought the debt.
He personally bought the debt?
I'm like, you personally bought the debt? And he's like, we bought it. I'm like, ooh. It took a little while for me to learn about exactly what the deal was, but Newmark bought the debt. But this guy calling me the chairman of whatever, wasn't the CEO of Newmark or whatever. It was just like, what? You bought the debt? Is that good news? Like that you helped us refinance this thing? And he's like, yeah, it's great news, man. We're going to like do a lot of stuff together. I'm like, oh, okay. So then like another few days later, I got another call from the same guy. And he's like, oh, I bought the rest of the debt. I own all your debt. And I'm like, why did you do that? Like, maybe you could have, why did we not talk about it? Like, why would you go there? Clearly you have a lot of access to information. So like, why are you doing? He's like, we just got to get out of this situation. It's a tough situation. In short, it's a few days later and they're like, okay, so we own your debt. You're in default in these following ways. We're going to foreclose on that debt. You've got 24 hours. Otherwise you're toast or whatever, like some short period. And you're going to have to shut down the entire business. Or we can lend you another $20 million right now on the condition that you bankrupt the company, run an auction for it, and let us buy it. And I was just like speechless. I was like, oh, holy crap. These guys basically chose this moment to put almost another $100 million total in, buy all the debt and then put in this new stuff, just in order to buy the company and wipe out everybody else. It was just like consummate Wall Street type, whatever. And your question, if you remember, this is a long story ago that you asked, but it's like, hey, with all these big investors, all this money, was there anything you regret? Oh yeah. Not knowing who was in there, not knowing what they would do and how they behave, not having done enough diligence to even ask a single person, hey, what do you think of this guy? Because as soon as I asked anybody, I got like 100 to 0 reviews on like, not surprised. This is what happens. What a cluster. It was a disaster. And it was really bad for investors, but it was also bad for employees. It was bad for our partners, our customers. Inside that process, we like walked away from customers. There were customers that were in spaces and we're like, we're not doing this building anymore. We're out. I was so disappointing that that's what we were forced to do. We ended up being forced to do that. I mean, arguably it's all within their rights and it's capitalism and it's dog eat dog world and whatever, but you can choose. I mean, there are rules and then you can also choose how you want to behave in life, you know? So that's what I regret.
But one thing is, did you have enough, even like in hindsight, you know that you act this way, but at that time, was there any due diligence you could have done to know that this is how this person was? Because you mentioned like when you asked, people say, I'm not surprised. But do you think they'll tell you that only after he kind of screws you over? Or do you think you could have researched your investor before you actually took the financing?
Yeah, I could have. Yeah, it was just a question away. And, it's true more generally. So in venture and in situations that are not quite as unique as this one, because this dude is like famously awful. To me, the simple diligence thing was just to see like, hey, there's this public company investing. Who's in charge? How does it run? What's the governance? Like, what's the deal? I'm sitting here with the CEO. Does he actually decide these things? Because in the event later, that guy was nowhere to be seen. It was like amazing to me. I was like, wow, this guy, this person who I'm dealing with isn't even consulting. Like it was amazing to watch it. So yeah, I could have done some of that. That would have been kind of basic and it would have been easy to ask. And, the real estate business is full of all these shady people. And they are very outspoken about each other, and it would have been a sensible thing to do. More normal for like a more normal entrepreneur or for that kind of context. It's also true. There are some venture firms that treat founders well, that treat teams well, they treat other investors well. And all that stuff is open secrets, man. I mean, they don't publish it on the web, but you ask a firm that is a top tier firm, like a great reputation firm, that's what's coded in there. And when you say, hey, I want to talk to this other firm, and someone says, oh, I'm friends with this guy, I'm friends with that person, that's kind of what that means. When someone says, I've never heard of these guys, that is like always super worrisome, especially when someone says, I haven't had a great experience. I mean, people will use milder language, I guess. But reputation matters a lot because when things are going well, treating people well is important, as important as the opposite, because when things are going well, you can get greedy and start screwing stuff up. And then when things are not going well, you're facing challenges. Yeah, that's the time to come together and get through. Some of the best companies in the world have like stared over the precipice into the, abyss, right? Like there was a moment in 2000 around before 9/11, after the dot-com crash, that like Amazon was like weeks away from running out of money. And that happens to many companies. There's a famous email from Elon Musk at Tesla back in like 2010 or 11, where he's like, you bastards, stop leaking information. We're going to make it. They get some loans from Obama and like the company makes it. Now it's $1 trillion company. Well, at that moment, everyone's like, ha ha, Elon, you arrogant fool. So everybody faces these moments, but it really depends on how people behave. And I think reputation, that's how it's made. It's definitely made on those difficult moments.
So one thing that comes to mind, so you've led a team. They've built this business up to, 400 million in recurring revenue. So isn't there an element where, let's say I'm an investor, even if I want to capture equity, but somehow I need to sort of, you don't sort of kill the chicken that laid, the goose that laid the golden egg. So isn't there some element where if you like had a great relationship with the investor, so they believed isn't that the only way ultimately to sort of avoid this kind of zero sum infighting thing?
Well, I mean, look, part of it is just personal integrity of the different people around the table. There are moments where a short-term personal gain at the expense of others To some people, that's tempting. They're going to do it. It's part of it. I definitely think that this whole thing went down the way it did, partly because of me. So partly these guys are like, well, you know, Amol's running the company. I don't like how he's running it. He's screwing up. I'm tired of waiting for him to fix it. If it had been the opposite and the guy was like, oh, this guy's amazing in difficult situation. It's really hard, but you know, no one better to do it than him. Of course they would have made a different decision. Sure. And I could have seen that picture more clearly and perhaps invested my own energy on just that like relationship management dimension. I surely could have done that. Yeah. I mean, because I was spending a lot of time on customers and my team, got to keep them together, keep customers together. And I was pretty focused on financing. Like, well, you know, there's going to be a tough period. There's going to have to be another financing. So I was spending a lot of time and energy on that. I wasn't spending a lot. And honestly, we were having daily board meetings and all this kind of stuff. We were talking to a lot of the important stakeholders, but there was this guy 3 steps away. There wasn't that much dialogue going on. I don't know. Maybe I could have seen deeper into it. Yeah. So I definitely have a role to play in that. It's not just like me pointing at other people. Yeah. I mean, some kind of relationship could have made a difference for sure.
Got it. Yeah, that's just like it's just like gut wrenching. You know what I'm saying? Like the story is just gut wrenching.
Well, I mean, it's business. We said about founders, it's hard to have too much sympathy for them being stressed out, right? And I mean, on the one hand, how lucky am I to have had a chance to build a business, billion plus whatever valuation, all this kind of stuff. That's great. And I guess, you know, the opposite side of that is it's a high stakes game at a big casino and sometimes it goes the other way. I mean, it's fine.